bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies that caused you to be bitter.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers, have you ever met anybody that their life has been characterized by a lifetime of bitterness? That they have been bitter for years, decades, maybe in some situations. So I used to be the admin for a major homeschool group. And obviously a lot of you that have been following our podcast for a number of years, for a year, we've only been doing it for a year, that know me. Obviously, we're a homeschool family. We've been homeschooling for, 9 years. And I used to be an admin in a very large homeschool group. And one of the things I love about homeschool families is they are very passionate. Very passionate folks, and I love it. I love passion. And and parents I think in general are very passionate. It's very, very easy to be passionate and opinionated about our children. And when you combine those aspects of parenting and education, and in this case, homeschooling, you can get almost a powder keg of topics and content and opinions and perspectives that can lead people down a road that in some cases they have not recovered from. And, there have been multiple topics, again, that I have seen over the years. I was probably the admin for that group for probably 5 or 6 years. And some people, are very, very passionate about homeschooling. Some people can't stand homeschooling. Some people can't stand a particular type of homeschooling. And what I found was there were a number of people that, almost it became their life purpose or life mission to attack or destroy or attempt to destroy a particular homeschool organization, where it became their identity. And for some of these folks, it became their almost full-time profession. Was they'd homeschool their kids, and then the rest of the day they would spend on Facebook trying to take down whatever homeschool organization they were against, or that they felt hurt by or offended by or mistreated by. And this is not to say that there is a perfect homeschool organization out there, or that whatever the homeschool organization has never made mistakes, or they've never done anything wrong, or all their leaders are emotionally healthy and intelligent and make all the right decisions, or that there's this perfect homeschool organization that has the perfect curriculum. Or no, I'm not saying any of that. Any organization that has human beings in it is by definition imperfect, in my opinion. I don't care how big it is. I don't care how small it is. I don't care. I don't care if they're a religious organization. I don't care if it's a church. I've heard some of the craziest things about churches. So there is no organization that is impervious to the imperfection of human beings, of right? Because, and this is one of the things I used to say is, whatever organization you expect to be perfect, as soon as you join it, it's no longer perfect. And especially for me, any organization that I'm a part of is not going to be perfect because I'm a part of it. I have all kinds of things that I am still working on. I just find it fascinating and sad, to be honest with you, when I run across people that have just a lifetime of bitterness, that they have chosen to kind of plant their flag in a life of bitterness and pain and hurt. And, you know, there's a number of verses in the Bible that talk about the power of forgiveness. And for a lot of us too, man, I tell you, for me, a huge problem I had with forgiveness was forgiving myself with all the failures and shortcomings and pain and injuries that I've caused other people. It was very hard for me to forgive myself, let alone anyone else that may or may not have hurt me. And, you know, have you ever met anybody that has had weeks, months, or years, or God forbid, decades of their lives destroyed, ravaged by bitterness, by unforgiveness? And man, again, please understand what I'm trying to say here. I am not trying to belittle or minimize anybody's pain. I understand hurting people hurt people. And especially now that I'm understanding more and more about emotional health and emotional intelligence, I am not surprised at all about the hurting people and the hurting people that hurt other people. It makes total sense to me because of my understanding of the power of our emotional health or lack thereof. And people that, especially like, and I'm kind of referring to abuse. So people that have had mental, physical, emotional, verbal abuse, especially severe abuse, that's severe trauma. That is massive injury and pain that trauma has caused. And again, so please understand, I'm not trying to belittle anybody's pain or trauma or abuse that you've experienced. My prayer for you, whether it's been abuse or a violation that you've experienced from another person or from a company or a family member or your job, your business, your organization that you're a part of, my prayer is that you get emotional healing, that you are able at some point to forgive. Bitterness, I've heard it said this way, bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Bitterness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies that caused you to be bitter. And, Viktor Frankl is a perfect example. His book, The Pursuit of Meaning, don't quote me on that. It's not coming to me right now. He was a Holocaust survivor, survived the concentration camps, and massive amounts of torture. And to have the mental, emotional, spiritual wherewithal to not let that experience, that very personal, intimate, painful, vicious experience define him define his identity, become his identity is amazing. It is truly the power of, I guess the human spirit to survive and thrive. It's amazing. Because I know for me, there are a number of things, and especially when I was extra emotionally unhealthy, and again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist. It seems like for me, from my perspective, from my experience, the more unhealthy I was emotionally, the easier, the more frequent, and the more extreme I would be triggered. The more emotionally unhealthy I was, the more frequently, the more intensely I would get triggered. And by little things would set me off. Little things would take me from a 0 to a 10. And I just empathize. Well, and here's what happened. So, I don't want to get too much into details, but based on a particular individual who was very, very against the homeschool organization that I have been a part of, I would take, a lot of those comments personally, because that was the organization that I am very, very fond of. I've got a lot of friends we've spent a number of years with. And I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea. I understand that some people, again, I understand that the organization I'm a part of also doesn't handle things right every single time. I also know the leaders of the organization personally, and I know that they absolutely do the best that they know to do with the information that they have at that given time. I've known them over the course of years, so it's not like I've only seen them on this occasion or that occasion or at a particular highlight in their life. I've seen them through the good times, I've seen them through the bad times over, again, almost a decade now. And while they are not perfect and don't always make the right decisions, I have seen them over the course of a decade, and they make the best decisions based on the information that they have at that given time with the right heart and intention, in my opinion. Now, again, there are a lot of people that may disagree with that. Totally fine. That is just my perspective after personally knowing these folks, these decision makers for, again, at least almost a decade now. And in this, when I was the admin, so there was one particular individual who was just very, very hell-bent on commenting at every opportunity to share their perspective on their disagreement with the organization, anything to do with the organization. It didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter what it was. Well, anyway, but I haven't been an admin in that group for a while now, but I'm also part of other homeschool groups and other different groups and stuff. And I had posted in another homeschool group. Well, unbeknownst to me, this particular individual was also in this group and immediately made a comment that was anti my content and questioned my intent for posting the content. And it kind of caught me off guard, and I didn't think a whole lot of it initially. And then I recognized the name. And then what was fascinating is it triggered me. My heart started to race. My chest got a little tight and my neck got a little hot. And I started to feel my blood pressure going up a little bit. And I was okay. And normally I would just let it go up and go up and up and up and up and up. Thankfully, again, due to my intentional EQ growth the past few years, 3 or 4 years now, I was able to recognize, oh, wow, I'm definitely feeling my blood pressure going up, and I'm starting to get a little anxious and a little, excited. And so why, I started, well, why? And then I recognize this name, and it was the name of this individual that was a very consistent, very intense antagonist. And again, I love and appreciate the passion that this individual has. But now I guess after running across this individual again, my takeaway was a couple things. The biggest thing is this has been years. When this individual first started making antagonistic comments, it was years ago when I was the admin of the group, early on when I was the admin of the group. And I thought, wow, this person is still very injured and very bitter. And that's years of bitterness and years of pain and anger and frustration and resentment and whatever else is going on in this individual's life over this particular organization. And it just made me feel sad, to be honest with you. And I'm gonna pray that this individual gets freedom and forgiveness, regardless of how they feel about homeschooling or this particular organization, whatever. I frankly don't care. My prayer is that they get some healing and some forgiveness in their life and some release and some emotional freedom, because it was the same level of pain that I felt from that individual years ago. And we've talked a little bit about this, and there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score. Pain and bitterness in our lives does not go unnoticed by our body. It is logged and filed and stored in our body. That's where a truckload of our stress, anxiety, and unhealthiness comes from. It's captured and stored in our body. We may think that emotions and feelings are not impacting us, pleasant or unpleasant. Extreme, intense, unpleasant emotions can wreak havoc in our physiology, in our body, in our minds. And my prayer is that if you have any unresolved conflict or bitterness or anger or frustration or sadness, resentment, disappointment, any of those unpleasant emotions, and that may even be a good exercise. Pull out the emotion wheel. You can Google the emotion wheel. You can go to our website, eqforentrepreneurs.com, and find the emotion wheel and go through the unpleasant emotions and see if any of those unpleasant emotions sting you out of the blue, kind of sting you, resonate with you, impact you, hit you out of nowhere. Wow, I hit disappointment. Ooh, I felt a little sting there. Wow, disappointment. Man, am I disappointed about something? What am I disappointed about? Where did the disappointment come from? Is it from something recent? Is it from something years ago that hasn't been resolved? Take some reflection time. And it's so worth, y'all, I'm telling you, it is so worth getting emotional freedom in your life, carrying around these toxic, heavy, intense, unpleasant, unproductive emotions and feelings that are just wreaking havoc in your life. It's just not healthy. And I said unproductive, and hear me when I say this. This is getting a little bit into the weeds. I'm not saying that unpleasant emotions are unproductive. Emotions, period, are signs and signals and data and information about things that we need to either work on or overcome or face or confront or deal with or process. So I'm not saying that by definition, unpleasant emotions are unproductive. Please understand that's not what I'm saying. If we hold on to, and again, I have a PhD in avoiding and stuffing emotions for decades. When we hold on to, repress, suppress, avoid, stuff, are not willing to confront unpleasant intense emotions and we just let them simmer. One of the quotes I say almost after every episode recently anyway, unaddressed emotional issues do not get better over time. They actually compound. So this particular individual that has this clearly unaddressed emotional issue that is so intense, it's some very unpleasant emotions that clearly have not been dealt with yet. It's had to have been at least 5 or 6 years. Man, I'm just wondering, what is it doing to that person's health? How else is that? Are all those unpleasant emotions, those stuffed, stored, simmering, boiling, unpleasant emotions, where else is that showing up in that person's life? Is it showing up in their marriage? Is it showing up in their parenting? Is it showing up in their finances? Is it showing up in their physical health? Clearly, it is impacting their emotional health. There's no question about that. I mean, it was like, man, and I think that's what was kind of triggering to me is like, wow, it brought back that frame of mind, that kind of defensive, hyper vigilant frame of mind that I had when I was the admin so many years ago, the first time I encountered this individual, and every time I had to engage and interact with this individual. And so, and I'm going to need to kind of process this because I'm still feeling a little bit anxious and intense in my chest and my throat, which is also helpful and is also a signal for growth for me. The fact that I can even recognize where I'm feeling these particular emotions is massive growth for me. Massive. I know some of y'all are like, man, dude, this has been a long journey for you. And it has been a pretty decent long journey, very intentional. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful. This is another step, another sign in my journey of emotional growth and emotional healing. And again, my response, normally in the past, I would be consumed by this person's antagonistic comments and attacks. I would take it personally. I would be consumed. It would wreck me. I would be thinking about my responses for hours and days, and it would impact how I would interact with my family and with other friends, and it would just be constantly in the back of my mind because then I never knew how to process it. I never knew how to. I wasn't emotionally healthy. Thank God I did not react. Because if I had reacted how I wanted to based on my emotions and feelings at the time, because what I would do is I would match that individual's level of antagonism with an equal and opposite. What is that? That's is that Newton's law? You guys help me out here. Is this entropy? It's not entropy. But anyway, F equals ma. I don't know what. It's something to do with physics. Sorry, y'all. My physics brain is a little dusty right now. I would match it. This individual would bring a level 9 or 10 intensity of antagonism, and my knee-jerk response was to immediately bring that same level back at them. And of course, how productive is that? How mature is that? Where does that lead anybody? That always, from my personal experience, just leads south very, very, very quickly. We see it every day on social media with politics. Every day. I don't care where you're at politically. I don't care. It doesn't matter whatever your party is. I've got friends that, well, I let the other party have it today. And I've got other friends, I told, some of your other friends, I told them how it was. And I'm like, to both camps, I'm like, and did they convert, to your way of thinking? Did they see your point of view? Were you successful in converting them to your particular political party? Like, how productive is it when we match intensity strictly with our own perspective without seeking first to understand. Anyway, I just have never seen it work in my personal experience. And so today, now I also finally, in the past, again, without any emotional maturity and very low emotional intelligence, I had no boundaries. So a lot of times I have let, and not only this individual, but a lot of people in my life, since I had no boundaries, I would let people walk all over me, especially as a people pleaser addict. I would let them walk all over me because I just want to be liked. I just want everyone to like me. Now, fortunately, in my response, because I've even responded a couple of times already, right after their particular response, which was another big victory, that even though it was a response and not a reaction, which is you guys don't even know, it's a massive victory. I responded, and I responded empathetically, but I also responded with boundaries. That, look, I'm not interested in battling you anymore. Like, clearly, this is an unresolved issue in your life, regardless of what your opinion is. And I ended it with, man, I'm very sorry that you're still clearly years later very, very upset. I meant I had no intention to hurt you, offend you, upset you. I'm also not going to stop putting out content that I think is going to help out everybody else except for you. And so I'm just thankful that I've grown. I mean, again, this is going to be a whole nother separate episode, but I'm just going to touch on it now. Crisis reveals, you could say crisis reveals character. Crisis also reveals your emotional intelligence level. Crisis reveals your emotional health. Crisis reveals your emotional state. How do you respond? And really, it's a subtopic of this topic again. People that have a lifetime of bitterness, or again years of bitterness. And I just want to let me circle back. No, and no pun intended there. I just want to encourage you: search your life, reflect, take some reflection time to find any areas that maybe have been unaddressed. I've been molested twice, once when I was 5 and once when I was in college. Thankfully, I have done a lot of emotional work around those 2 times, thankfully, because those were 2 examples in my life that would immediately, well, first of all, here's what happened. First of all, I buried and stuffed them, like to the point where I didn't even remember them until I went through counseling, and then boom, these 2 things came up. I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even remember these, that they happened. But as soon as I remembered them, it immediately took me to a 10. Immediately, I was filled with rage and anger and destruction and animosity. And I mean, name the intense emotion, and I was feeling it about these 2 individuals, and honestly about the group that they represented. I projected, and again, didn't even know that that's where my intense emotions and feelings came from about this particular group of people, until I made these connections, until I went through counseling and thankfully was able to get some healing, emotional healing in this area. And now I can talk about this stuff and it doesn't get me all emotional or intense or triggered. So I know that, again, I've gotten healing. It's another proof of growth of my own emotional health and healing. So I just want to encourage you all to do some reflection. And here's the thing. Here's my massive, I guess, I don't know if warning or concern or admonishment. I don't know what the right word is. It's not coming to me right now. If you come across some major emotional injuries, like in my case, getting molested would be, and you don't feel like you can handle that, reflecting on those things, praying about those things, working through those things on your own, please seek professional help. Get counseling, seek a therapist, find somebody in your area that you trust, that you feel safe with, that you can work through those things with, because getting healing in your life in these areas is, I wish I could convey how freeing and how, man, freeing is the word, how liberated I feel now, again, about these two areas. Again, the two times I was molested, but also in this conflict with this particular individual. Man, I'm so excited. I'm so thankful. You guys, I've never responded this way with conflict before, ever. I would always go to a 10. Now, I will, again, transparency, full transparency, it did take me to probably a good 5 or 6, which is honestly higher than I've been triggered in recently, or over the past handful of months or even years. So 5 or 6 is high. Normally I'd go to a 2 or 3 when I've gotten triggered, which is, again, not as often, not nearly as often as I used to. So please, I've come down already within an hour. And again, I'm talking I'd be days or weeks amped, not an hour amped. So again, lots of little teeny victories for me in this recent conflict that just happened literally an hour ago. So please, for your sake, for your loved one's sake, because they may be getting impacted by any bitterness or frustration or injuries that you've experienced that you're not even aware of. They may be in the receiving end, and you may not even be aware of how it's impacting you. I seriously doubt this individual is even aware of how this particular issue is impacting so many different areas of their life. So please seek professional help. Maybe if it's not a major injury, emotional injury in your life, maybe you can work on some of those things on your own. But you are worth it. You are valuable. Your emotional health and emotional healing are so worth getting the breakthroughs, getting the healing, getting the forgiveness for you and for that party that was, the injuring party, if you will. It's so freeing. It is so freeing getting that, just getting that healing and breakthrough and victory. So, and remember, again, unaddressed emotional issues do not get better over time. They actually compound. And emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for rating. Thank you for reviewing. Thank you for subscribing, whether it's our YouTube channel or podcast called EQ for Entrepreneurs.